as we jump into looking at some of the different countries that would go around the world, and all of our offices that Ciati exists in, some of the high points and low points, and we look at Argentina at this point in time. They're coming off a low crop here in 23. That it seems to be, and you can say this for a lot of different producing countries, that the vintages that might be in favor right now that you should be selling very well, like a 22, maybe Malbec from Argentina, has become very old very fast. And that is happening in a lot of different places. The nice part about what is happening with Argentina, that there is some good product out there. The prices are favorable. They're trying to make them more favorable to the rest of their export customers. So you can see some definite benefits to looking at Argentina at this point.
One of the things I did here is I went back and took a look at every single week going back to the beginning of 2022, and I rolled a 52-week period in. So in other words, I took every week and made it 52 weeks to understand what that difference is between volume and value. And you can see that differential for wine has been pretty consistent. But here's where we have to be careful, because I do a lot of interviews in the press, and a lot of the press are speculating that the wine business is going to be cyclical. In other words, it's down right now. It's been down in a very deep trough. Therefore, it's going to bounce back and kind of take care of itself. Well, it's going to take a little more than that. This is more than a cyclical change that's going on. This is a fundamental change that's got to be driven by really bringing in a new consumer, a new shopper into the business. It's not going to just take care of itself. Some businesses in beverage alcohol do that. They cycle. They may go down, they come back, and they kind of create their own new level. This is going to be a lot more challenging, and I'm going to talk about some solutions around that.
Let's talk now about sales capabilities. Right? Sales capabilities, teaching the people who are going to be walking in the door with your brands how to more effectively sell your brands. It begins with understanding how you actually call on an account. So whether we're talking on-premise, off-premise, corporate chain, or indie, you need to have a solid understanding of what does the process look like. Now, if you're contracting with Southern Glazers, if you're talking about Breakthrough, some of the Johnson Brothers, bigger distributors, they're going to have a formalized sales call process that you're going to want to know what that is and how your brands fit into that structure. If you're working with a smaller distributor, maybe family owned, younger, what you might find is that they do not have a structured sales call process, which means you need to be the one to bring that to the table. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in just a moment. But it's all about what do you do before, during, and after every single sales call. That's the structured call approach. These individuals also need to know how to put together a persuasive selling presentation. Right? So for those of you that have been around the business for a while, you may have heard of Sierra selling. Gallo embraces Sierra selling. It's a way of crafting your presentation in a persuasive way that encourages the buyer to say yes. So we as professionals should know how to craft a very persuasive sales presentation. Additionally, brush up on your math skills. That's right. Who loves math? Raise your hand if you love math. Very few hands are being raised. That's right. Okay, but do you know the margin equations? Do you know how to factor markup? Do you have the ability to craft a sales presentation that utilizes blended margin? So if you don't know the basic facts when it comes to selling on, off, and corporate chain, brush up on those things. Make sure that the people that are selling your brands here in the United States, across the United States, know how to tell the profit story.
And when you say hold hands with the distributor and really be that kind of that partner on how to get into a chain, I think that relationship as a supplier to the distributor is just as important as the supplier to the end retailer. And listen, I love national brands, big and small, because they're all important. But I also love these small independent brands that are fighting and clawing just to get a national account to even see them in the first place. The advantage of those brands to a retailer are immense because one, you're not everywhere. And sometimes the pitch is, I'm already in chain A, B, and C, and I already have a lot of distribution and independence, so therefore I need to be in your account as well. And that does work. It's kind of the fear of missing out. The other thing that works though is that I'm not everywhere, but I can be with you. And it's not exactly an exclusive, it's not exactly a private label, but it's the fact that I can be first to market, I can have something that no one else has, and there's a huge advantage to that. You know, brands like Yellowtail and Josh are awesome because they bring people into the store immediately. They come through the door, they're looking for those because they know they can find those everywhere. And it's really, how do I merchandise and market those brands? But the other thing is, you know, brand X that I have that no one else has is really important. So I think as part of the overall story, there's profit, there's packaging, there's what's inside the bottle, where you come from, kind of that, what your story, what you're telling, what that elevator pitch is. Part of it is, you know, how am I gonna help your customer base find this item? And do you really need this item? And if the answer is yes, then I think there can be a great partnership there, no matter how big or how small you are.
To me, it's thinking outside the box. I think that this day and age, there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of people, a lot of suppliers out there with marketing supports and all kinds of different stuff, but does everybody have the creativity to really engage? And having the knowledge of the restaurant that you're going to be working with or the restaurant company, understanding what those concepts are, and then being able to execute on a higher and creative level. I mean by, how do we bring those guests back? How do we get those guests coming back and thinking about our restaurant group based on what creative ideas? This is like, in my RFP, I always had this thing, I said, I want to do expected and unexpected experiences. What can you do for my guests that can be expected? What can you do for my guests that can be unexpected? Expected experience would be something they can buy ahead of time, you know? Oh, buy a bottle of champagne, you get free oysters with it, right? That's expected. You came ahead, you bought ahead of time, you made your open table reservation, your oysters come to the table and the bottle of champagne come to the table. That's kind of a great expected experience. Unexpected would be something different where, you know, the supplier comes in, helps out with, maybe it's something like maybe they create a playlist for your restaurant. Maybe your theme is a Latin restaurant theme and they create a special playlist for you. And then when you order that particular tequila or whatever you might do, the server comes by and gives you a little Spotify playlist of like the music that we play in the restaurant or something based on that. You know, something that's unexpected. So the guest walks away with something and it's like, oh, I had that at that particular restaurant, right? So I think that's kind of important. It's like thinking the creativity beyond it, because now it's like, money's money, you know? What do you use it with? You know, it's like, that doesn't really do anything for me, you know?
And this is what somebody from McKinsey, again, I won't say anything bad about McKinsey. Hopefully nobody works for McKinsey, but McKinsey's great at telling you, you know, what's going to work for you. And these are some of their adages, right? First mover obviously is on there. Put your weight in your local market. All these things. And I was like, is there anything in here that resonates with what WhistlePig did? And I'm sure there is, but I don't think in a small craft company or in a growth company you talk about these things. This is something that happens in the background or after you've kind of had your growth spurt. And I thought about it, I was like, what's our 3 rules for growth? Like, why did WhistlePig grow? We had those, you know, forces behind us, right? Great marketing conditions. I mean, again, we were extremely lucky. But I think about it, we had this like growth mindset and we were always about entrepreneurship. It wasn't about experts. We were super asset light, right? And really, really brand heavy. And then again, as we've grown over the last couple of years, I think about like, well, what's keeping us growing? And as we hire more professionals, I'm about like, let's not like big business take over, right? Let's continue to stay nimble.
So how does it work? These are all key parts of really any certification process. And it starts with leadership commitment. This has to be part of it. Is the certification process top down or bottom up? Really, it's both. Because you have to have people at the very highest level sign on to a process that is going to cost money at some point, invite external auditors into your business at another point, and potentially change the way you do things. So you need to have people at the very highest leadership level of your business involved. Second of all, you have to have involvement from the people actually doing the work. We call that frontline, but the guys who are actually operating the presses, dragging the hoses, people who are titrating in the lab, they need to be on board and understand what you're doing and why. And the reason why is not just because you want everybody singing the same tune, but because some of your best ideas are going to come from the people who are doing the actual work. And we have certainly found that in any process, whether it's a mechanical process, agricultural process, that you have to listen to people who are actually doing the work, and that's where you're going to get some of your very best ideas. We do a lot of exercises at O'Neill that involve, for example, bringing in operators of a particular piece of equipment from all different shifts, getting them in a room, looking at numbers with them, seeing how people are running it differently, what are they doing the same, and really getting them involved and excited about doing things the best way we possibly can. Best practices is the term we throw around a lot in this industry and other industries. And that is one way to think about it, finding the best practice. But something that my friend Caroline Herman said, she's involved in the Sustainable Wine Roundtable. I like it better, and she said it's going beyond compliance. Doing more than what the law is telling you to do, and even more than what your auditors might be telling you to do, to find a way to run your business so that you're not just checking the boxes, but you're actually influencing the process, you're making things better for other people, and maybe the best practice today might not be the best practice tomorrow.
So when we think of AI and when we think how to put it back in our system, we always think, how will it ever supersede a human? In our systems, in our function, we need that empathy, we need that expression, we need that thought process, we need that intelligence. So why we should have AI? So the reason is this: AI is just good enough. It's just good enough for you to use. If you want to make your sales materials, good enough. If you want to write a sales pitch, good enough. If you want to just make your social strategy and you want to at least give it a start, good enough. If I want to make, let's say, a wine, and if I just want to see that how many wine near me is below $100, and if I do a search and if I get a list of wineries which are making a product below $100, it's good enough. So AI is not a flashy lure. It's not something which is just going to change your system. It is just an app, an algorithm that works for you and gives you good enough results.